My husband accidentally admitted to everyone that he only married me because he couldn't marry my sister. I thought it was a drunken joke, until I found evidence that destroyed everything I knew about our marriage. I'm Lily, 32 years old. Before any of the chaos, before the Christmas party disaster, before the words that detonated my marriage like a landmine, there was us. Or at least the version of us I thought was real. And then there was Luna. Luna, my younger sister. 27, radiant. The kind of beautiful that makes people stare a little too long before catching themselves. She's always been magnetic without trying. Warm, bright, the person everyone gravitates toward. I used to be proud of that. I used to introduce her with the kind of big sister affection that felt protective and whole. I never imagined her name would become the shadow hanging over my marriage. And then there's Dylan, 35, my husband of 8 years. Charming in public, effortlessly confident, the kind of man who makes people feel seen until you live with him long enough to learn that his attention is a spotlight, not a glow. He aims it where he wants, and the rest of the world disappears. When we met, he felt like the first person who ever really chose me. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't stunning, I wasn't the girl who turned heads. I was steady, creative, quiet. And he made me feel like that was enough. He'd kiss my forehead and say, "You're the kind of woman men marry, not the kind they chase for fun." I thought he was complimenting me. I didn't realize he was already drawing the map of the pedestal he intended to put my sister on. Looking back, the red flags weren't even red. They were neon, practically vibrating. The way he stared a little too hard at Luna the first summer he spent with my family. The way he'd compare us with a laugh. "Your sister's got a killer fashion sense. You should try something like that." His comments about how toned she was, how social, how naturally gifted. I brushed it off as normal sibling comparisons, maybe even harmless admiration. But there was also the way he guided me, subtly at first, suggesting different outfits, different hairstyles, different workouts. "Just try it," he'd say. "Trust me." And stupidly I did, because that's what wives do, right? They take feedback, they adapt, they try. Somewhere along the way, I stopped realizing how often his suggestions included the phrase, "Luna wears," or "Luna looks good in," as if she were the blueprint and I was the off-brand attempt. I didn't know it yet, but he wasn't shaping a wife. He was sculpting a substitute, and last night, he finally said it out loud. I keep replaying the moment in my head, the moment the mask finally slipped off Dylan's face at that damn Christmas party. I can still smell the whiskey on his breath, the stale cologne he always oversprayed before work events, like appearances were the only thing about him that mattered. We were standing near the bar, me holding a watered-down cocktail, because I'd promised myself not to drink too much around his coworkers. Dylan liked to be on at these events.
Hey guys, real quick before we keep going, don't forget to sub and drop a like if you're enjoying the story. Thank you very much. Enjoy watching.
"Don't cling," he'd whisper before we walked in. "Let me circulate." I used to think he just wanted to look good in front of his team. Last night, I realized he wanted to look available in a way I had never allowed myself to consider. His coworker Brett, early 40s, harmless, polite, wandered over to us with that friendly holiday buzz. He smiled at me and said, "Man, Dylan, you lucked out. Your wife's gorgeous." Dylan grinned, that smug, loose grin he gets when he's tipsy and thinks he's being clever. Then he said it. "Yeah, well, you thought you should see her sister." At first, I honestly thought I misheard him. My brain tried to protect me, rewiring the sentence into something less awful. But then he leaned in, swaying slightly, and delivered the second blow. "Now that's the real prize. This one's just the consolation." Brett's face drained. He stammered something about finding his wife and practically sprinted out of the conversation. I was frozen, completely still, like my body refused to move because movement meant accepting reality. The humiliation didn't hit first. Confusion did. Confusion so thick it felt like drowning. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Dylan blinked like he'd forgotten I existed. "Nothing, baby. Just guy talk." But the truth was already hanging in the air, thick, sour, undeniable. When I told him we were leaving, he rolled his eyes like I was the problem. Like my hurt was an inconvenience to his night. The car ride home was worse. Because he didn't backtrack. He didn't panic, or apologize, or explain. Like a man who said something he didn't mean. He doubled down. He told me he couldn't date Luna back then because she was 18 and I was 23. He said it made more sense to choose me. Like I was a practical decision. Like a car model that wasn't his first pick but got better gas mileage. He called us the same genetics. As if I were just an older, legal, boring version of what he really wanted. Every sentence he spoke layered another crack across the surface of my marriage, like he was smashing glass, slowly, deliberately. By the time we pulled into our driveway, my hands weren't shaking from anger. They were shaking from clarity. Because for the first time in 8 years, I finally saw my husband for who he really was. When we stepped inside the house, I didn't argue, I didn't cry. I went straight to the bedroom and pulled out the suitcases. Dylan followed me, already defensive, already annoyed, because in his mind I was ruining the night. but he had no idea what was coming. He had no idea that Luna was about to call, and that everything he'd buried for years was about to detonate in real time. I had barely unzipped the first suitcase when my phone started buzzing on the dresser. Luna's name lit up the screen. My heart dropped because there was no universe in which she'd call at 11 p.m. unless something was seriously wrong. I answered on speaker because I wanted Dylan to hear every word. "Hey, are you okay?" Luna's voice was tight, like she'd been holding her breath. "Brett's wife just called me. She said something weird happened at Dylan's party." Dylan's whole body went rigid behind me. His eyes flicked toward the phone like a man caught in a trap he thought he'd covered well. "What did she tell you?" I asked, keeping my voice steady even though my stomach was twisting. "Just that Dylan said something inappropriate about marrying the wrong sister," Luna said. "Is that true?" I didn't answer. I just turned and looked at him. "Lily," Luna pressed, "what happened?" "Dylan," I said softly. "Why don't you explain it?" He threw his hands up. "Nothing happened. Jesus. Brett's wife is dramatic. Everything got taken out of context." "What context?" Luna snapped. "Makes it okay for a married man with 2 kids to talk about wishing he married his wife's sister." Her words hit like a slap. Sharp, righteous, devastating. Dylan's face twisted into anger, the kind that comes when a man's ego gets cornered. "Everyone's always fawning over you," he spat into the phone. "At every family event, Luna the model, Luna the influencer, Luna the perfect one. And I'm stuck with..." He stopped, realizing too late what was about to fall out of his mouth. Luna went dead. Silent. "Stuck with what, Dylan?" I said. "Go ahead. Finish it." He looked right at me and said quietly, "Someone who'll never measure up." Luna gasped. I heard something clatter on her end. Maybe her water bottle, maybe her composure. Then her voice came back. But it wasn't the warm, soft Luna everyone knew. It was steel. "You piece of absolute garbage," she said, her voice shaking with disgust. "My sister is worth 10 of you. She carried your household, raised your kids, supported you through your father's death, and you have the nerve to say she'll never measure up to me? To me?" Dylan rubbed his face and muttered, "This is being blown way out of..." "Stop talking," Luna cut him off. "Just stop. You're disgusting." He flinched, actually flinched, like the word physically hit him. "Lily," she said, gentler now. "Do you need somewhere to stay? You and the kids?" "I'm packing," I whispered. "Good," Luna replied. "My door is open. And Dylan? Listen carefully. If you ever look at me, speak to me, or come near me again, I swear you'll regret it. Don't drag the whole family into this," he snapped. But Luna didn't even hesitate. "I already called Mom and Dad," she said. "They're driving up in the morning. They should know exactly what kind of man you are." She hung up. And the silence that followed wasn't calm. It pulsed, electric and dangerous. Dylan stared at me, like I'd created the disaster. "This is your fault," he said, and his voice cracked with something ugly. "You couldn't just let it go. You had to involve her. Now everyone's going to hate me." "You did that yourself," I said. "Every word came from your own mouth." He slammed his hand into the doorframe, hard enough that the picture beside it rattled. Not at me, not exactly, but close enough that my body braced without thinking. "Don't pack another thing," he growled. "I'm serious." I met his eyes for the first time that night. "I'm leaving," I said, quietly. "And nothing you say is going to stop me." For a second, something dangerous flickered behind his expression, like he wanted to grab me, shake me, do something physical. But he held back, fists clenching at his sides. Then he stormed out of the room, slamming the guest room door so hard the walls shook. I kept packing, because once Luna heard the truth, there was no going back, and I had no idea that this was just the beginning, because Dylan's unraveling hadn't even started yet. I barely slept that night. I kept hearing the echo of Dylan's door slam, the angry slam that wasn't aimed at me, but close enough that my body didn't care. I finished packing around 3 a.m., moving through the house like a ghost. Every framed photo felt like a lie someone printed out and hung on my walls. Every room I stepped into felt smaller, darker, suffocating. The kids woke up at 7. They padded into the kitchen, sleepy-eyed, asking for pancakes. I made breakfast with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I kept everything cheerful, upbeat, divorce voice, the one I didn't even know I had until that morning. Dylan emerged from the guest room looking wrecked, hair sticking up, shirt wrinkled, the kind of face a man makes when he realizes the world isn't bending for him anymore. He tried to kiss the kids goodbye like it was a normal morning, but our son pulled back, confused and wary. That made Dylan's face collapse in on itself, like a bruise spreading across his features. I didn't comfort him, not anymore. We left within the hour. When we pulled into Luna's apartment complex, the sight of her waiting outside, arms crossed, jaw set, made my knees nearly buckle. She didn't say anything at first. She just hugged me, long and fierce. I didn't realize I was crying until my face was pressed into her shoulder. Inside, she already had everything set up for the kids, air mattresses, clean blankets, their favorite snacks lined up like a welcome parade. She didn't ask questions. She didn't force conversation. She handled it the way she handled everything that mattered, quietly, effectively, with her whole heart. My parents showed up, right at noon, just like she'd said, Mom crying, Dad furious in that controlled, terrifying way. I told them everything, every word Dylan said, every comparison, every moment I'd swallowed over the years. Mom sobbed harder with each detail. Dad's jaw kept tightening like he was grinding the enamel off his teeth. He didn't even hesitate. He pulled out his phone and called Dylan. Put it on speaker. The conversation lasted less than 30 seconds. "You're not welcome at family events," my dad said calmly. "Not birthdays, not dinners, not holidays. You don't contact Lily except through lawyers." Dylan sputtered. Tried to defend himself, tried to twist it. My dad hung up mid-sentence. That was the moment Dylan broke. My phone started blowing up within minutes. Call after call, text after text. The tone shifted every time, like he was spinning a wheel of emotional manipulation. First message, "Your dad threatened me." Second, "You're blowing this out of proportion." Third, "You're turning my own kids against me." Fourth, "You did this. You ruined everything." And then came the kicker. Luna's probably thrilled you're staying with her. She likes attention. When Luna read that text, she laughed. Hard, sharp, almost feral. "Oh, he's unraveling," she said. And he was. By sunset, he'd switched strategies entirely. He started showing up, literally. The first time was that same evening, banging on Luna's door loud enough that the kids jumped. She went to the peephole and stepped back. "It's him." My heart sank. The kids clung to my legs. "Open the door," Dylan shouted. "Yeah, I just want to talk to my wife." Luna squared her shoulders, opened the door 2 inches, and planted her foot like a wall. "You don't show up here unannounced. You don't scare your kids. Back up, Dylan." He tried to push forward. She pushed the door shut in his face so hard he stumbled backward. He started yelling, begging, accusing, threatening to call the police, threatening to take the kids, threatening to ruin her career, threatening to expose family secrets that didn't even exist. The neighbors started peeking out into the hallway. Someone yelled they would call security. Luna didn't flinch. I stood behind her trembling, holding the kids close, watching my husband devolve into something unrecognizable. Then security arrived, forcing him to leave the building. He pointed at me as they dragged him toward the elevator. "This isn't over, Lily. You can't just walk away." But what he didn't know was that something far worse for him had just begun. Because the next morning I went back to the house to get more of the kids' things. And that's when I found the journal. The house felt haunted when I walked in, the next morning. Not by ghosts, by the version of myself who used to live there. The one who folded laundry on the couch and thought she was loved. Sunlight streamed through the blinds, like nothing had happened, like the walls weren't echoing with the things Dylan had screamed outside Luna's apartment only hours before. I moved fast, grabbing the kids' coats, their favorite blankets, a few toys they'd asked for. The house was too silent, too still. I kept expecting Dylan to walk in. I kept expecting to feel him behind me, breathing down my neck, repeating last night's threats. When I got to our bedroom, my chest tightened. Our bed. The bed where I'd cried into his shoulder, slept beside him through pregnancies, listened to him talk about work, felt like a crime scene now. I opened my side of the closet, pulled down my shoes, stuffed them into a duffel bag. Then I noticed his nightstand drawer was slightly open. I didn't go looking for anything, but something in me, some instinct, some whisper, told me to look. I pulled the drawer open. Inside was a worn, leather-bound journal, the one he used to write in during college. He always told me he stopped using it years ago, but I opened it anyway. Maybe because I wanted answers, maybe because I was bracing for the final blow. The handwriting was unmistakable. So were the words. The first page I flipped to was dated 3 months after we started dating. It described a barbecue at my parents' house. Luna had been 18 then, still practically a kid, and Dylan wrote about her sundress, how he couldn't stop watching her, how she was effortless, magnetic, the kind of girl who turns men stupid. Then he wrote about me. Lily is good for me, practical, stable. This will get me closer to the family, closer to her. I felt something inside me snap, not break. Break implies fragility. This was different, more like a bone resetting itself after years of healing wrong. I forced myself to keep reading. Page after page, he talked about our engagement. Like it was a strategy, how he hoped marriage would mean more time around Luna, how it was a smart choice to stay connected. Over and over, he used the same words: smart, practical, acceptable, good enough. When I found the entry from the week of our wedding, I had to sit down on the edge of the bed because the room tilted. Marrying Lily is the best move. Luna will see me as part of the family now. Maybe someday she'll realize we could have been something. I don't remember crying. I remember breathing, slow, mechanical breaths, because my body switched to survival mode. I took photos of every page. My hands were trembling so violently the camera kept blurring. This wasn't insecurity, or jealousy, or drunken rambling. It was evidence. It was 8 years of calculated deception. I shoved the journal back, grabbed the last of my things, and left the house with the door unlocked behind me because my hands were shaking too hard to find the keys. When I got to Luna's apartment, she opened the door before I even knocked. She took one look at me, and the color drained from her face. What happened? I held up my phone. He wrote everything down, I whispered. Everything. We sat at her kitchen island while she scrolled me through the pictures, her expression shifting from horror to fury to something far darker. This man is sick, she finally said. He's sick, Lily. My dad arrived 20 minutes later after Luna sent him the photos. He didn't speak, he just hugged me, then sat down like he needed both feet on solid ground to keep from exploding. And that's when he said it. We're not just divorcing him, we're exposing him. Something cold and resolute slid into my bones. A new clarity, a new purpose. Revenge wasn't a plan, it was an inevitability. But the real avalanche started 2 days later, when Dylan showed up at Luna's building again. And this time, he didn't come alone. 2 days after we found the journal, I was getting the kids ready for lunch when Luna froze at the sound of pounding on her apartment door. Not knocking, pounding, the kind meant to scare, to demand, to force. She mouthed, "It's him." My stomach dropped. The kids looked up from their coloring books, startled. Then a voice, loud, frantic, wobbling, on the edge of something dangerous. "Lily, open the damn door." I pulled the kids behind me as Luna stormed to the people. She swore under her breath. "He brought someone," she whispered. "Who?" I asked. She looked at me with disbelief and disgust. "His mother." My blood ran cold. Dylan's mom, Claire, sweet, anxious, conflict avoidant, was standing right beside him, in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. Dylan was red-faced, sweaty, wild-eyed, pointing at the door like he was presenting evidence. "See?" he shouted at her. "She won't even talk to me. She's ruining everything." Claire pressed her hands together like she was begging the universe for mercy. "Lily, honey, please, just come out and talk. He said you left without explaining anything." Luna ripped the door open so fast Dylan actually jerked backward. "You need to leave, she said, blocking the doorway. "Both of you." Dylan stepped forward, voice cracking. "She turned my own family against me. Mom, tell her I've been miserable. Tell her I didn't mean any of it." Claire sobbed harder. "He said it was just a misunderstanding." Luna laughed, sharp, humorless. "A misunderstanding? He wrote a damn journal about how he wished he married me instead of her. You want to see screenshots?" Dylan's face went blotchy with rage. "You had no right to touch my stuff. You had no right to build a marriage on my sister's body like she was a bridge to me," Luna snapped back. He lunged forward. Not at me, at Luna. Instinct, rage, ego. I don't know. But he moved fast like he was going to shove her aside and force his way in. Luna slammed the door back into his chest so hard he staggered. "Back up!" But Dylan didn't back up. He grabbed the doorframe, shaking, almost frothing, and screamed, "They're my kids!" The hallway went dead silent. Doors opened. Neighbors stepped out, phones in hand. Someone whispered, "Should we call security?" Someone else answered, "Already did." Claire grabbed his arm, horrified. "Dylan, stop! You're scaring people." He ripped his arm away. "I'm not leaving without them. She can't keep my kids from me." Luna stepped forward, forehead inches from his. "You're not taking them. Not today. Not ever alone until a judge says so. Get out." Security rounded the corner. 2 guards. They recognized Dylan from last time. "Sir, you need to leave the premises immediately." "No," Dylan yelled. "They're kidnapping my children." He pointed at me, like I was a criminal, his face twisted in desperation. The kids started crying, behind me. And that's what finally broke Claire. She turned on her son, sobbing. "Dylan, stop this. Look at what you're doing." Security pulled him back as he tried to fight their grip. He screamed my name like it was a curse, like it was a lifeline, like if he just said it loud enough, I'd magically forget everything he'd ever done. They dragged him down the hall while he kicked and yelled. "This isn't over, Lily. You hear me? You can't erase me." When the elevator doors finally closed, Claire stood there trembling, whispering apologies she couldn't finish. Luna shut the door gently. Then she turned to me, her chest heaving. "We're filing a restraining order," she said. "Tonight." And that was the moment something in me shifted from fear to fury. Real, cold, focused fury. The kind that builds the foundation for revenge. I didn't sleep that night. Not after the hallway scene. Not after watching Dylan get dragged into the elevator, screaming like a man who'd lost control of his own skin. Not after hearing the kids cry themselves to sleep, while Luna sat on the floor beside them, rubbing their backs until they finally drifted off. Fear used to be the loudest thing in my head, but that night, it was clarity. Cold, glittering clarity. By morning, I had a plan. Not petty revenge, not messy revenge. Something sweeter. Cleaner. The kind that doesn't just hit the man, it hits the illusion he used to survive. The illusion that he was the victim. The illusion that his obsession was love. The illusion that he was respected. The illusion that people didn't see exactly who he really was. The first step was the restraining order. Luna drove me to the courthouse. She held my purse while I filled out the paperwork. When the clerk read the details, his screaming, his attempt to force his way into the apartment, the children crying, her expression hardened with quiet disgust. When the judge approved the emergency order, something inside me loosened. Like a knot I'd been holding since the night of the Christmas party finally came undone. But I wasn't done, not even close. Because I had his journal photos, and Luna had a platform. I didn't want to blast everything publicly. Not names, not faces, not the whole tangled mess. I didn't want to look vindictive. I didn't want to hand Dylan a weapon to twist the narrative, but Luna knew exactly how to strike without names. She posted a story on her Instagram, just text on a black background. If you're married to someone who compares you to your own sister for years, you're not in a marriage. You're in a sickness. If you find his journal and discover he used your entire relationship as a strategy to get close to someone else, you're not overreacting. You're escaping. No tags, no identifiers, just truth. Her followers, hundreds of thousands of them, went berserk. Women started sharing their own stories. People started reposting it. It went viral in hours. A trending topic without ever using a name. But Dylan saw it because he emailed me at 2:14 a.m. I know you told her to do that. You're trying to ruin me. This time, I didn't respond. My revenge wasn't about him anymore. It was about me reclaiming the oxygen he'd been sucking out of my lungs for 8 years. Step 2 happened the next day. HR called me. Not because I reached out, because his coworkers did. Brett's wife had told people. Those people told others. And eventually, HR launched a full internal investigation. Women from the office had stepped forward about how Dylan talked about Luna, how he'd show her Instagram photos at work events, how he'd compare me to her in break rooms, how he once joked during a team lunch that he'd married the wrong sister. HR wanted my statement. So I gave it, simple, factual, calm. I didn't dramatize, I didn't exaggerate. I sent them the screenshots from the party, the text he'd sent afterward, and one journal page, the one where he wrote, "Marrying Lily keeps me close to Luna." HR went silent for 2 days. During those 2 days, Dylan tried calling from numbers I didn't recognize, leaving voicemails of him crying, screaming, apologizing, bargaining, threatening. Every voicemail contradicted the last, like spinning a roulette wheel of emotional instability. But I didn't break. I saved everything. And then, 3 days later, HR called me back. They had suspended him, pending termination. I thought I'd feel triumphant. But what I felt was clean. Like the air in the room finally tasted right. Then came the final step in my revenge, quiet, subtle, but powerful. I told the mediator I wanted full documentation of Dylan's behavior included in our custody file. The screaming, the door pounding, the attempt to force his way in, the restraining order, the journal. Suddenly, Dylan wasn't just fighting for his reputation. He was fighting for his kids' trust, and losing badly. When the court notified him that his visitation would be supervised until he completed anger management, he lost his mind, left 10 voicemails, one after another, each more unhinged than the last. But the best revenge, the sweetest part, it wasn't the HR suspension. It wasn't the restraining order. It wasn't the journal being entered into evidence. It was this, for the first time in 8 years. He had no control, no audience, no ally, no way to manipulate the narrative. He was finally facing the one opponent he could never overpower, the truth. And he was crumbling under it. The day Dylan's employment officially ended, HR sent me a brief professional email confirming his termination for repeated boundary violations and behavioral incidents. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply forwarded it to my lawyer and then sat in the quiet of Luna's apartment, hands wrapped around a mug of cooling tea, listening to the hum of the dishwasher and the soft breathing of my kids napping in the next room. It felt surreal. For 8 years, Dylan had been the center of gravity in my life, the sun I orbited around, shrinking myself into whatever shape he wanted. And now that he'd gone supernova and burned himself out, the world finally felt still, balanced. But he didn't go quietly. He never would. The night after his termination, my phone lit up with a new number, again. I let it ring, then another and another. When he finally left a voicemail, I made myself listen to it. His voice was hoarse, raw, ragged, but not with sadness, with rage. "You destroyed my life," he said. "You turned everyone against me. You think you won? You think they'll see you as the victim forever? You wait. People get tired of sympathy. People forget. But they'll always remember what you did to me." He paused, breathing hard. "You were nothing without me." I didn't shake this time. I didn't cry. I saved the voicemail and sent it straight to my lawyer. She filed it into the custody documentation. By the next court meeting, the judge listened to his recordings with a frown so deep it carved new lines into his forehead. He reviewed Dylan's behavior, the restraining order, the HR findings, and the journal excerpts. Then he looked directly at Dylan. "Until you complete anger management, personal therapy, and demonstrate sustained behavioral change, visitation will remain supervised." Dylan exploded. Not violently, he wasn't stupid enough to make a scene in front of a judge, but the contained fury trembling under his skin was unmistakable. His attorney had to put a hand on his arm to keep him from standing up. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not vengeance. Just release. After the hearing, while I was buckling the kids into their car seats, Dylan approached the edge of the parking lot. He wasn't allowed within 50 feet, but he stood just far enough away that the wind could carry his voice. "You'll regret this," he called out. I closed the car door, walked around to the driver's seat, and looked at him for the last time with the kind of calm I didn't know I was capable of. "You already regret it for both of us," I said, and got into the car. He didn't follow. He didn't shout again. He just stood there, small, defeated, a man trapped in a cage of his own making. The next few months weren't easy, but they were steady, predictable. The kids adjusted faster than I expected. Children are born, with a resilience adults forget they once had. They decorated their rooms in my new apartment with messy enthusiasm. Blue for my son, purple with glow-in-the-dark stars for my daughter. Luna visited often, my parents too. They'd bring groceries, or help hang curtains, or just sit on the floor with me when the silence got too heavy. I went back to therapy. I went back to work. I took on freelance design projects. I rediscovered music I used to love, books I used to read. I remembered how it felt to exist without walking on eggshells. One night, after a long day of painting the living room wall, a shade of green Dylan always called too bold, I tucked the kids into bed. My daughter whispered, "You seem happy now." And something warm and quiet bloomed in my chest. When I turned off the lights and stepped into the living room, I noticed the last cardboard box I hadn't opened yet. The one labeled Misk. I sat on the floor and pulled off the tape. Inside, wrapped in towels, was the framed wedding photo I thought I'd thrown out months ago. Our faces smiled back at me glowing with naive hope, him confident, polished, looking not at me, but slightly past me, toward the church pew where Luna had been sitting. I stared at that photo for a long, long minute. Then I picked it up, walked out onto my balcony, and dropped it straight into the dumpster below. The frame shattered on impact. I didn't flinch. The next morning, the sunlight in my apartment felt different, warmer somehow, like it belonged to me. Luna stopped by later with coffee. The kids ran to her, laughing the way they always did. She hugged me tight with one arm and whispered, "You're free." And for the first time, not just since the divorce, not just since the Christmas party, but maybe for the first time in my entire adult life. I believed it. I was free. I wasn't the consolation prize. I wasn't the placeholder. I wasn't the woman he settled for. I was Lily. And I finally remembered what it felt like to choose myself first.